In the middle of a massive desert, a group of teenage boys are digging giant holes under the burning sun while armed supervisors watch them from nearby. The heat is unbearable, and the work clearly pushes the boys to their limits. One of them suddenly stops digging after spotting a rattlesnake nearby. Completely exhausted and unable to continue anymore, he slowly walks toward the snake and removes his shoes, accepting his fate as the others stare helplessly. Meanwhile in the city, a teenage boy named Stanley Yelnats IV is walking home from school when a pair of dirty sneakers suddenly falls from the sky and lands directly on him. Stanley recognizes the shoes because they belong to a famous baseball player named Clyde Livingston, whose sneakers were being auctioned for charity. Since Stanley's father has been unsuccessfully trying to invent a cure for foot odor for years, Stanley decides to take the shoes home. But before he can even explain where they came from, police officers surround him and place him under arrest. Stanley is taken home, where the police immediately become suspicious after seeing piles of shoes scattered all over the apartment because of Stanley's father's experiments. Stanley tries explaining that the shoes literally fell from the sky, but nobody believes him. At court, Stanley is accused of stealing the shoes from a charity auction. Even though he insists he found them by accident, the judge gives him only two options.
I could send you to jail, but I don't know what good that would do.
Prison or 18 months at Camp Green Lake. Thinking the camp might be similar to a normal summer camp, Stanley chooses Camp Green Lake.
18 months, Camp Green Lake, son.
During the bus ride across the desert, Stanley starts thinking about the curse his family has believed in for generations. According to his grandfather, the entire Yelnats family suffers from terrible luck because Stanley's great-great-grandfather broke a promise many years ago. As the bus continues through the empty desert, Stanley briefly thinks he sees a man riding beside a mule in the distance, but the image quickly disappears. Eventually the bus arrives at Camp Green Lake, which turns out to be nothing like Stanley expected. There is no lake at all. Instead, the entire area is dry, lifeless, and filled with endless holes dug into the ground. Stanley immediately realizes this place is more like a prison camp than a rehabilitation center. He is greeted by Mr. Sir, one of the camp supervisors, who explains how things work there. According to him, there are no fences or guard towers because the desert itself prevents anyone from escaping. There is no water for miles, and anyone who runs away usually dies from dehydration before getting very far.
You want to run away? Go ahead, start running. I won't stop you.
Mr. Sir gives Stanley two sets of clothes, a hat, and a shovel. Then he explains the camp's main rule. Every day, each boy must dig one hole that is exactly 5 feet deep and 5 feet wide. The faster they finish, the faster they can get out of the sun. He also warns Stanley about the dangerous animals living around the camp, especially rattlesnakes and yellow-spotted lizards.
You don't bother them, they won't bother you.
Afterwards, Stanley meets Dr. Pendansky, the camp counselor, who pretends to be friendly while showing him around the camp. Pendansky tells him that the boys are there to build character through hard work. He also warns Stanley never to bother the warden, the mysterious woman who runs the camp. Stanley is then taken to his tent where he meets the other boys. Instead of using real names, everyone goes by nicknames. There's X-Ray, Armpit, Squid, Zigzag, Magnet, and Zero. Stanley quickly learns that using someone's real name is considered disrespectful there. The boys immediately start testing Stanley to see how weak he is. During dinner, X-Ray steals part of Stanley's food and explains that new kids do not deserve full meals on their first day because they haven't dug any holes yet. The meals themselves are terrible, mostly being served in different ways every day. While talking, the boys ask Stanley why he was sent there. When Stanley admits he was accused of stealing Clyde Livingston's shoes, Zero suddenly asks if the shoes had red excess on them. Stanley is surprised that Zero even knows about the shoes because Zero almost never speaks. Later that night, Stanley struggles to sleep while listening to the sounds of the camp around him. He starts thinking again about the curse connected to his family history. Years earlier, his ancestor Ilya Yelnats fell in love with a girl named Myra Menke. Since another man was also trying to marry her, Ilya visited a fortune teller named Madame Zeroni for help. Madame Zeroni gave Ilya a piglet and instructed him to carry it up a mountain every day while singing a special song to it. As the pig grew bigger, Ilya would grow stronger too. But she warned him that after he finished, he had to carry Madame Zeroni herself up the mountain and sing the same song to her. If he failed to keep his promise, his entire family would be cursed forever. The next morning, Stanley is woken up before sunrise along with the rest of the boys. They are given a small breakfast and sent out into the desert with their shovels. When Stanley grabs one, X-Ray immediately takes it from him because X-Ray refuses to use any shovel except his own shorter one. Once they reach the digging area, Mr. Sir explains another important rule. If any boy finds something unusual while digging, they must report it immediately. According to him, the camp is not searching for anything specific and the digging is only meant to build character. But Stanley quickly notices how serious Mr. Sir becomes while talking about hidden objects. The boys begin digging while Stanley struggles badly under the extreme heat. Dirt constantly falls back into his hole and his hands quickly develop painful blisters. The other boys laugh at him whenever he complains or asks for help. As Stanley keeps digging, he continues thinking about Ilya Yelnats and Madame Zeroni. Back then, Ilya successfully raised the pig until it became large enough to compete with the pig offered by his rival. But when Myra was unable to choose between them and treated the entire marriage decision like a game, Ilya became frustrated and decided to leave for America instead. In his anger and disappointment, he forgot to return and carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain like he promised. From that moment on, the Yelnats family curse began. Back in the present, Stanley continues struggling through his first full day at Camp Green Lake. The heat becomes unbearable, his body grows weaker every hour, and the hole barely seems to get deeper no matter how hard he works. Eventually, he finally finishes digging just before sunset, exhausted and barely able to stand. When he tries climbing out of the hole, nobody helps him. Stanley has to struggle his way out alone while the others watch. As he walks back toward camp that evening, Stanley suddenly encounters a yellow-spotted lizard nearby. Before it can attack him, Mr. Sir appears and shoots at it, barely missing Stanley in the process before finally killing the lizard. For the first time since arriving, Stanley fully realizes how dangerous Camp Green Lake really is. Days begin passing at Camp Green Lake, and Stanley slowly gets used to the brutal routine. Every morning the boys wake up before sunrise, eat a small breakfast, grab their shovels, and spend the entire day digging holes under the burning desert heat. Stanley's hands become covered in blisters, and his entire body constantly aches from exhaustion. Sometimes the showers stop working, the food barely changes, and dangerous animals wander through the camp without warning. The other boys continue making fun of Stanley because he is slower than everyone else and clearly not used to hard labor. To avoid trouble, Stanley mostly keeps quiet and focuses on surviving each day. Whenever he writes letters home to his mother, he lies and pretends Camp Green Lake is a normal summer camp where he is having a good time. One afternoon while digging, Stanley discovers a fossil buried underground and decides to bring it to Dr. Pendanski. However, Pendanski immediately tells him the warden is not interested in fossils. He also explains that there used to be an actual lake there many years ago before the entire area dried up. According to him, all the land around the lake once belonged to the warden's grandfather. This leads into another flashback showing the town of Green Lake many years earlier when it was still full of life. Back then the town had schools, shops, trees, and water everywhere. A black onion seller named Sam regularly visited the town with his donkey cart, selling onions that he claimed could cure almost anything. Sam was friendly with everyone and especially liked the local schoolteacher Catherine Barlow. Whenever Sam visited the school, he brought Catherine fresh onions while she gave him jars of peaches in return. The two slowly became close to each other while many of the men in town grew jealous of Sam because they also admired Catherine. One day, heavy rain causes leaks throughout the school building, so Sam offers to repair the roof. While fixing the school, he spends more time with Catherine and the two eventually begin falling in love. At the same time, a wealthy man named Charles Walker continues trying to impress Catherine, but she repeatedly rejects him.
No, thank you, Mr. Walker.
No one ever says no to try Walker.
As Stanley continues adapting to camp life in the present, he slowly begins earning a little respect from the other boys. One afternoon, he accidentally falls on Zigzag during an argument and nearly starts a fight, but the situation is stopped before it becomes serious. Afterward, the boys officially give Stanley the nickname Caveman.
Nobody messed with the caveman. Did you see the caveman back there?
Finally treating him like part of the group. Not long later, Stanley receives a letter from home explaining that his father's experiments are still failing and the family's financial situation is getting worse. Around the same time, Zero quietly asks Stanley to teach him how to read because he never learned properly. Stanley refuses at first because he is too tired after digging all day.
I get tired from digging all day, so I just want to come back and chill, you know.
During another day of digging, Stanley suddenly uncovers a small golden tube with the initials KB engraved on it. The boys examine it closely and wonder what it could be. Before Stanley can properly react, X-Ray quickly takes the object and tells Stanley to let him turn it in instead. Later, when Pendanski sees the tube, he immediately contacts the warden. The boys are shocked when she arrives because, unlike what Stanley expected, the warden is a young woman. The moment she sees the object, she becomes extremely interested and orders the boys to dig around the exact area where it was found. X-Ray is rewarded with a full day off while the others are forced to dig one giant hole together. The warden watches them closely while they continue digging deeper into the ground. It becomes obvious that the camp is secretly searching for something hidden underground. For several days, the boys continue digging the same massive area but find almost nothing except a small metal piece. Eventually, the warden loses interest and orders everyone to go back to digging separate holes again. Shortly afterward, one of the boys steals a bag of sunflower seeds from Mr. Sir's truck while he is filling their water containers. After Mr. Sir leaves, the boys begin passing the seeds around, but suddenly they realize the truck is turning back toward them because Mr. Sir noticed the bag missing. The boys panic and quickly try hiding the seeds. Unfortunately, some spill near Stanley's hole, making it look like he stole them. When Mr. Sir arrives, Stanley takes the blame to protect the others, even though he did nothing. Mr. Sir immediately drags Stanley to the warden's cabin for punishment. Inside, Stanley notices posters and newspaper articles about the outlaw Kissin Kate Barlow covering the walls. The warden also shows Stanley her rattlesnake venom nail polish while casually painting her nails. Then, when Mr. Sir interrupts her, she suddenly scratches his face deeply across both cheeks with her freshly painted nails. Afterward, the warden becomes annoyed that Stanley was brought there over something as small as sunflower seeds and sends him back to work. Mr. Sir appears at the digging site. The scars on his face are still fresh and painful. Angry about what happened, he refuses to fill Stanley's water container properly. As Stanley continues teaching Zero to read and write each day, another flashback reveals more of Catherine Barlow's story. After Sam was killed by the townspeople for being in a relationship with Catherine, Green Lake slowly began drying up. Catherine eventually returned to town, shot the sheriff, kissed him, and became the outlaw known as Kissin Kate Barlow. Over time, Kate robbed many wealthy men traveling through the desert. One of her victims was Stanley's great-grandfather, Stanley Yelnats I, whose treasure chest she stole before leaving him stranded in the desert. Back in the present, Stanley slowly realizes the golden tube he found earlier may have belonged to Kate Barlow herself. And for the first time, he begins understanding that the warden's obsession with digging has something to do with Kate's hidden treasure. As Stanley continues teaching Zero how to read after work, the two slowly become close friends. Every evening, Stanley helps him sound out words and practice writing letters in the dirt, while Zero secretly helps Stanley dig part of his holes during the day. Since Zero is the fastest digger at the camp, Stanley's workload becomes much easier, but the other boys quickly start noticing what is happening. One afternoon, Zero finally reveals his real name is Hector Zeroni. Stanley is shocked after hearing the last name because it reminds him of Madame Zeroni, the woman connected to his family curse. Zero also explains that his mother disappeared years earlier, and ever since then he has been living alone on the streets, surviving however he could. Meanwhile, another flashback reveals what happened to Kissin Kate Barlow after she became an outlaw. Kate spent years robbing wealthy travelers across the desert while authorities failed to catch her. Eventually, she robbed Stanley's great-grandfather and stole a treasure chest filled with valuables before leaving him stranded in the desert. Later, Charles Walker and his wife tracked Kate down near Green Lake because they desperately wanted the treasure for themselves after the town became poor and abandoned once the lake dried up. But instead of revealing where the treasure was hidden, Kate allowed a yellow-spotted lizard to bite her and died laughing, taking the secret location of the treasure with her. Back in the present, tensions at Camp Green Lake continue growing. Some of the boys become jealous that Stanley receives help from Zero while they still have to dig alone every day. During one argument, Zigzag begins attacking Stanley in the middle of the desert while Pendanski watches instead of stopping the fight. Stanley quickly gets overpowered and slammed into the dirt. Seeing this, Zero suddenly snaps and jumps into the fight to defend Stanley. Pendanski fires his gun into the air to stop the chaos, and the warden soon arrives to find out what happened. The boys immediately reveal that Zero has been helping Stanley dig holes in exchange for reading lessons. The warden becomes furious after hearing this while Pendanski openly insults Zero, calling him stupid and worthless because he cannot read. For the first time in the movie, Zero completely loses control. He grabs a shovel and smashes it directly across Pendanski's face before sprinting away into the desert. Everyone freezes in shock as Pendanski collapses to the ground bleeding. Mr. Sir immediately wants to chase after Zero, but the warden stops him. According to her, Zero has no family and no records anyone truly cares about. She calmly says they can simply erase his files and pretend he never existed.
Are we sure that he had no family?
He was living on the streets when he was arrested. He had nobody. He was nobody.
Destroy his records.
But I'm telling you, no one is going to come looking for him.
That night, the boys talk about how impossible it is to survive alone in the desert without water. Stanley keeps thinking about Zero while remembering another story connected to his family history. Years earlier, Stanley's great-grandfather somehow survived for over 2 weeks in the desert after Kate Barlow robbed him. According to family stories, he survived by finding refuge at a mysterious place called God's Thumb. The next morning, Stanley is disturbed when a new boy arrives at camp to replace Zero almost immediately, as if Zero never mattered at all. Realizing nobody else is going to help him, Stanley makes a decision. While Mr. Sir is distracted filling water containers, Stanley steals his truck and drives into the desert. Mr. Sir jumps onto the side of the vehicle trying to stop him, but Stanley loses control and crashes the truck into a hole. Without wasting time, Stanley jumps out and continues running into the desert on foot while the other boys watch him disappear into the distance. Later, when the warden hears what happened, she orders Mr. Sir to wait 2 weeks before reporting Stanley missing because by then there will be nothing left to find. Under the brutal desert heat, Stanley continues wandering across the empty landscape while avoiding rattlesnakes and yellow-spotted lizards. Eventually, he discovers an old broken boat sitting in the middle of the desert and finds Zero hiding underneath it. Zero is weak, exhausted, and barely able to stand, but he is still alive. He explains that he survived by eating old jars of peaches buried nearby. The peaches originally belonged to Sam and Catherine many years earlier and have turned into spoiled jam after sitting underground for decades. As Stanley and Zero rest together, Stanley notices a giant mountain formation in the distance shaped like a thumb. He immediately realizes it must be God's Thumb, the place where his ancestor survived years earlier. The boys decide to travel there hoping they can find water. The climb quickly becomes difficult because the heat and exhaustion continue draining their strength. At one point, Stanley almost falls off the mountain, but Zero manages to pull him back up using a shovel. However, the climb eventually becomes too much for Zero. Weak from dehydration and hunger, he suddenly collapses and loses consciousness. Refusing to leave him behind, Stanley lifts Zero onto his back and continues climbing the mountain alone. Step by step, Stanley struggles upward, carrying Zero through the rocky terrain until he finally reaches the top. There he discovers fresh water flowing through a small stream along with wild onions growing nearby. Stanley immediately gives Zero water, and both boys begin eating the onions to recover their strength. While resting at the top of the mountain, Stanley unknowingly sings the same song passed down through his family for generations. The same song Ilya Yelnats once sang while carrying the pig up the mountain for Madame Zeroni. At that exact moment, the Yelnats family curse is finally broken.
Would you smell the shoe?
Oh, Mom. Honey, I don't smell anything.
What? What do you smell? Nothing.
Whoa, I don't smell anything.
I don't smell anything.
After spending the night on top of God's Thumb, Stanley and Zero slowly recover their strength by eating onions and drinking fresh water from the stream. Zero finally confesses something he has been hiding the entire time. He admits that he was actually the one who stole Clyde Livingston's shoes. Zero explains that he took the shoes from the shelter because he thought they were just normal sneakers. But once the police began chasing him, he panicked and threw them off a bridge. Those same shoes accidentally landed on Stanley, leading to his arrest and everything that followed afterward. Surprisingly, Stanley does not get angry after hearing the truth. Instead, he realizes that all the events somehow led both of them there together for a reason. Meanwhile, back at Camp Green Lake, Stanley's lawyer arrives to take him home after new evidence proves he is innocent. However, the warden lies and claims Stanley ran away on his own. The lawyer becomes suspicious and warns the warden that she will return with the authorities if Stanley is not found. Back on the mountain, Stanley keeps thinking about the golden tube he found earlier with the initials KB on it. He eventually realizes it belonged to Kissin Kate Barlow, and becomes convinced her treasure chest must still be buried somewhere near the hole where he originally found the tube. Stanley and Zero decide to leave the mountain and return to Camp Green Lake one final time to search for the treasure. That night, they carefully sneak back across the desert and eventually arrive near the digging site. Stanley locates the exact hole where he found the lipstick tube, and both boys begin digging together. After hours of digging, Stanley suddenly hits something solid underground. The boys uncover an old treasure chest buried beneath the dirt. But before they can escape with it, the warden, Mr. Sir, and Pendanski suddenly appear and surround the hole. At that exact moment, several yellow-spotted lizards begin crawling out of the dirt and into the hole with Stanley and Zero. The warden desperately wants the treasure, but nobody is willing to enter the hole because the lizards are deadly. Stanley and Zero are forced to remain completely still while the lizards crawl all over them. As the night passes, the warden grows increasingly frustrated. She explains that her family spent generations searching for Kate Barlow's treasure ever since her grandfather failed to find it. She reveals that her grandfather forced her to dig holes around the desert her entire childhood, even on holidays, continuing the obsession passed down through the Walker family. Morning finally arrives, but surprisingly the lizards still have not bitten Stanley or Zero. Then Stanley's lawyer suddenly returns with police officers and government investigators. The warden quickly invents a story claiming Stanley and Zero stole the treasure chest from her cabin before escaping into the hole. But when the investigators examine the chest closely, they discover Stanley Yelnats' name written directly on it, proving the chest originally belonged to Stanley's great-grandfather before it was stolen by Kate Barlow. At the same time, the investigators discover that Zero's records are missing entirely. This immediately raises suspicion about how Camp Green Lake has been operating. Soon the truth about the camp begins falling apart completely. The authorities learn that Mr. Sir is actually a criminal using a fake identity, and that Pendanski is not a real doctor. As the investigation expands, the warden, Mr. Sir, and Pendanski are all arrested. At that exact moment, rain suddenly begins falling over Green Lake for the first time in decades. The boys remaining at the camp run outside celebrating while the dry desert begins flooding with water again. After years of drought, Green Lake is finally returning. A few days later, Stanley returns home with the treasure chest recovered from Camp Green Lake. Together with his family and Zero, he finally opens it and discovers that it is filled with gold, jewelry, and old documents that belonged to Stanley's great-grandfather before Kissin Kate Barlow stole it many years earlier. Inside the chest, they also find valuable stock certificates that have become worth a fortune over time. Overnight, Stanley's family finally becomes rich after generations of bad luck and struggle. Stanley immediately decides to share the treasure equally with Zero because he believes they both earned it together. The Yelnats family agrees without hesitation and officially welcomes Zero into their home. At the same time, Zero uses part of the treasure money to hire investigators to search for his missing mother. After years of being separated from her, the investigators finally locate her, leading to an emotional reunion between Zero and his mother. Stanley and Zero are now living comfortably with their families as neighbors. The two remain close friends and continue spending time together along with some of the other boys from Camp Green Lake. Stanley's father's invention becomes so successful that even Clyde Livingston, the famous baseball player connected to the stolen shoes, appears in commercials promoting the product. In the end, everything finally connects together.